much. Hello everybody, my name is Michael Hobbs and I'm the chairman of Cork Environmental Forum. The long road of political activism that led to me being here before you today started way back in 1984 when I elected to live at Menwith Hill Peace Camp outside an American US military spy base in Yorkshire. While most of my peers were off at university doing a degree, I obtained an education of a different sort from all the protesters and professors, policemen and politicians who visited the camp over the 3 years that I lived there. Later, when I moved to Leeds, I started Aire Valley Earth First, and I helped to stop a timber merchant who was importing illegally the rainforest from the Amazon, which was great. I moved to West Cork in '93 and taught the environmental talk, with my wildlife pond and my garden, my windmill generator and my solar panels. But when the Iraq war came, I found myself the secretary of Cork anti-war campaign. And I expressed my opinion by bouncing my bones off a riot shield at Shannon Airport. Maybe it was the dismissal in higher circles of all the demonstrations that took place at that time that made me question the treadmill of my own tactics. Or maybe it was a few weeks later when I found myself on the roof of a Cork-based international arms dealer when, in that chaos that flows from a non-violent direct action, the unexpected happened and I actually met him, the arms dealer that is. For in that twilight limbo moment that is the space between being rugby tackled by security and led away by the guards, two equally confused humans sat in the sun and talked. And despite all the political taboos, found it difficult not to like each other. We should meet again, he said, and talk, as I was kind of led away by the guards, because I never did see him again. There was no facility within our movement to talk to such an enemy. A few weeks later, as synchronicities are apt to do, I met Cork Environmental Forum for the first time, and it was obvious that they were different from the outset. Their commitment to the environmental cause was the same as my own, but their strategy was uniquely different. Cork Environmental Forum is a child of the 1992 United Nations Rio Earth Summit and the Rio Declaration on the Environment and Development that came from that, which in turn led to the local Agenda 21 initiative, which, to state briefly, means that if we want to create the sustainable future for Cork City and County, then this can't happen by a government diktat being put on the people from above. This has to happen at a local level, a grassroots level, at the level of you and of me. So, Cork Environmental Forum, by its very constitution, it must include all the four pillars. These pillars would be the business community, the public sector, the community and voluntary sector, and the ordinary individuals. And it's, our policy, our raison d'etre, our reason for being, that we get all those different sectors of society together to find those solutions that will take us from where we are and what is to that sustainable future for Cork City and the county that we all want. So having been on the Cork Environmental Forum's Management Committee now for 6 years, and its chairman for 3, it does kind of give me a unique perspective on these two roles of environmental action that are the protester and the stakeholder. So, first of all, taking my favourite, probably, no, the fun one anyway, the protester. I have really fond memories of being a protester. First of all, it was fun and it was easy. You could go along to a demonstration, shout a few slogans, great job, John Dunn, go home, fair play. Or if you wanted, it was heroic. You'd go off and get arrested and go to jail, cred points all round, fabulous, Or otherwise, other people would say, it's empowering. People are rising up. It's brilliant, But then I always used to think, 3 days after the revolution, then what? As a protester, I was really good at saying, this is what I don't want, but not very good at actually saying what I did want. Contrast this with the role of the stakeholder, and it's completely different. It's hard. It's difficult. You probably spend most of your nights wading through things like the county development plan or reports and writing submissions, which to most people would probably constitute cruel and unusual punishment. I know, I've been there. But, as well, you'll be an unsung hero. Normally, other people will take credit for the ideas that you've created. And as well as that, You know, this is a long, you know, if you become a representative on a panel or something like that, then it's a long-term commitment. It takes time, it takes energy. So let's just imagine now that there's, you know, if you will, that there's two of me going down these twin pathways of environmental activism, stakeholder and protester. You know, which of these two roles actually gets the job done? Which one creates the solutions that I actually want, this sustainable future? Well, in order to analyze this situation, I've selected three criteria. And the first criterion is, how will my message be communicated? How will I express my views, you know? As a protester on a demo, you know, I can walk down the street and I can shout slogans at the shoppers as I go past, and you know, down Patrick Street. And if I'm lucky, I might get interviewed, or maybe a little bit of my press release might appear in some column inches somewhere. And you know, but then, who was that guy who appeared on the news? You know, who gave the soundbite who I never saw before? And was his, you know, was that message that he gave? Was that our message, or was it just a kind of off-the-cuff remark? You know what I mean? And did that mean that our message in the media kind of came across as being, you know, uncoordinated, incoherent, all those kind of things? And then as well, it is, you know, in the media, in the newspaper, is that the best place to kind of create a dialogue, to start a discussion on the sensitive nature of how we're going to form these solutions? I don't think so, actually. As a stakeholder, on the other hand, I have the advantage of talking directly with the people that I wish to communicate with. And, you know, stakeholder can take many forms. You can be, you know, there's formal or informal contracts. You can do written submissions. Or the most powerful, you can actually be a representative on a stakeholder panel somewhere. But in all these cases, you do get a chance to state your case in a full and a considered and a reasoned way, and then you could, you know, influence this decision-making process. But it's so much more than that. For the second element in my evaluation, I want to ask, what are the chances of the success of these two strategies? You know, how do we view success and failure? For the protester, the first measure of success might be how many people turned out on your demonstration, you know, and then second, what about the press coverage, or what about the political comment that it generated? And if you were in lucky, then, you know, maybe a policy will get changed somewhere and you'll go, victory, hooray, you know. But then, on the other hand, you know, after a demonstration, you probably, you know, most of the time I ended up dealing with some of the most common negatives, and the most common of all of those, of course, would have to be violence. How often did one of my, you know, peaceful and law-abiding demonstrations end up being taken over by a rioting youth who were egged on by agents provocateurs? Often the soundbite that appeared on the news with the, you know, the youth there who was a bit kind of hostile and aggressive because it made better copy than my reasoned and thoughtful debate. And the non-violent direct actions, they always seem to end up, you know, instead of kind of creating a good feeling, they always end up in, I don't know, in court with criminal injunctions and criminal records. And when all those ended up in the papers, you would turn off the mainstream and people would, oh, you'd get burnt out. And so, you know, and then the next time I came to have organize another demonstration, I was talking to the media. I spent half my time kind of trying to justify the conduct of my movement's participants rather than debating the environmental issues, which the whole thing was meant to be about. For the stakeholder, on the other hand, success is measured in a completely different way. It's about forging relationships. It's about carving out an evolving role for yourself over time. It's about closing your mouth and opening your ears, because you will learn something. You'll become more knowledgeable, more informed. The way that you understand the internal structures in the organization, maybe their review systems, you know, all of this thing will make it that your arguments will become more pertinent within the organization, and people will listen to you more as you develop your role. And people who started off being your adversaries, you know, the other stakeholders there, we start forming partnerships, and before you know it, you're kind of friends and you're working together to form solutions. And that's what makes it so empowering, so that it's, you know, your contribution to the debate becomes more intelligent and people start to listen to you. And as well, it's about character and trust and integrity. It's those things that will lead the direction of the debate much more, I've found, actually, than mere facts. Thirdly, and most importantly, when it comes to affecting environmental change and creating the sustainable future that we want, which of these two strategies actually fits best with the creation of the solutions that I actually want. The protester model works very well if you're campaigning on a single issue that can easily be changed. The environmental movement started out in this way when we had, dislocated kind of different issues such as save the whales or stop acid rain or save the rainforest. But today, the issues that confront the kind of sustainability and environmental movement addresses are so uniquely so wide-ranging and so holistic that they require nothing less than a genuine paradigm shift in the whole way that we run our human civilization on the planet. It's not something that, the Irish government could give to a protester who's campaigning. It's global, it's intergovernmental, but at the same time, it's about me and you and what we do and the way we live our lives. So, the current human experiment in global civilization faces such a unique set of environmental challenges right now that sometimes they can appear, overwhelming. We've got climate change, we've got peak oil, and if it's not just peak oil, then it's peak everything, rare earth metals are running out. How are we going to feed everybody when the population of the planet is accelerated up to 9 billion? And on the other side, we have biodiversity, where the species extinction rate is 1,000 times over background level, and at the same time, we have had this huge burgeoning kind of civilization running on an economic exponential growth model that doesn't work on a finite planet. It's like we've created for ourselves a perfect storm. And if this is the 11th hour, then I believe the key that unlocks all of the solutions to all of these different problems, it won't be found in the latest climate change report from the IPCC or the latest economic model from the IMF. Barring a miracle or divine intervention, then the awful truth is that we have to save ourselves from ourselves by ourselves. And this will require the slaughtering of a number of sacred and well-fatted calves, and that some powerful vested interests will have to invest their interest in something else. I'm not saying, of course, that we should stop protesting, but I am saying that at the same time, and maybe more of a measure, we need to be engaging as well. So, in this kind of remaining critical, fleeting moment that we have, we can't spend that time watching me protest about you and you protesting about me. Otherwise, by the shouting, it's going to be all over. When the whole structure of human society, by necessity, needs to be rebuilt into an as yet unknown form, when the economic and social and environmental structures that form the bedrock of our modern and vibrant city need to be re-evaluated, need to be remade to make Cork City fit to thrive in the 21st century, then what is it that we can do to ensure that our civilization and our local society hold together? What is it that will take us through from where we are safely onto the other side? The question posed by the crisis that we're in is, have we evolved enough to be able to come together, pull together, to become stakeholders in the solutions, to become partners in this process? The challenge that the future has thrust upon us is, can we be friends? Thank you very much.